Okay. So you are all going to receive it as well.
Okay. And it's now streaming live on YouTube
Yes.
for us, so everyone can see that it's streaming live. Dr. Tracy, Jeff, if Danny can just let everyone know interpretation is available, and Dr. White, you'll just hit the interpretation afterwards.
Yes.
Okay.
Buenas noches, comunidad de aprendizaje de las escuelas públicas de New Haven. Están viendo la reunión de la doctora Eileen Tracy, superintendente de nuestras escuelas públicas de New Haven. Yo estaré traduciendo al español. Van a verme en la pantalla, pero solamente las personas que hablan español me oirán. Lo que tienen, el señor Mendía, si le puede explicar cómo ellos pueden cambiarse a la página para que hablen, para que oigan mi conversación en español. Imagino que es donde dice translate, y ahí pueden oprimir para que los transfieran a la traducción al español.
Thank you, Danny. And Dr. Tracy, turning it over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Hannons, and thank you, team. Thank you to my parents who are watching and listening this afternoon or this evening. We believe it was important that we bring you together now that we are a full month or more into school. And I'm sure you'd like to know updates, what's happening in New Haven Public Schools. I am excited, truly excited. And here's why I'm excited. One, my students are in school. You have decided to entrust us with your precious jewels, your children. We know that through visiting schools, see the excitement on the students' face. They're dressed in their uniform. They are so engaged in the classroom, and that makes me very excited. I am also excited because you have understood our problems with transportation, with teacher shortage. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for bearing with us as we navigate these different challenges that we have. Many of these challenges are outside our control. We're trying to work with other folks to get the problems mitigated. The transportation, everyone has heard about the nationwide transportation challenge for school children. In one system, not too far from us, they have activated the National Guard to help them. Even around us in Connecticut, there are drivers who have not returned to work, and those systems are plunged into major problems. New Haven bus company that we use is First Student. They have tried and send out communication, soliciting for bus drivers, increase their stipend by $5,000. They have also paid for training for the drivers, yet it is still a challenge because many of them rely on retired drivers, seasoned drivers, to make sure that they're transporting our students. We have about 300 buses to transport our students. When we do not have drivers, it's impossible to operate a 300 bus fleet that we do have. There are times when drivers call out, complicating the matter. There are times when drivers may be sick, calling out, and it complicates the matter. So what we are having is that some of our buses are doubling up to ensure that at least the students get to school. Now, having said that, some of them may reach the school late, but I'm sure the teachers are making up things for them to make sure they're not missing out. Some of them are late coming home. As a parent and now a grandparent, I know that that is a challenge to have to wait for little ones to come home from school late. They're tired, they're out for a whole day. You yourselves are at work and your jobs can be in jeopardy, to pick up your child from school. We understand all that. But please do know that we're trying to mitigate as much as we can on our side. And the bus company is really, really seriously trying. That's why they decide to double up on routes so that at least we're getting the students and getting them back home. We are also challenged with teacher shortage. We've not had for a long time a shortage in the K-6 population, but we're seeing that that is impacting us some. There's some schools that do not have some of their teachers in place. Some teachers are on FMLA, which is, met leave, and we are filling the positions with substitute teachers. We have also this COVID compliance thing has come in, which to a certain extent is impacting, but not very much impact so much at this time. We've had at least more than 96% of our staff has been compliant with the governor's order, and that's a good thing for New Haven Public Schools. We've done a lot of messaging. We want to make sure that everyone is safe, our students, our staff, and that everyone who works with our student, that their safety first to take care of. I know some of you have concerns about, I've heard it because you emailed me, and I make sure that I answer your email when you do email me. You also have concerns about, some schools have concerns about drinking water for students. That's something we're exploring. That would be 20,000 bottles of water every day. We're exploring to see whether or not we can facilitate that as a school system. But in the meantime, if you would really help us out and allow your students to fill up a bottle of water to take to school with them, that would be very helpful while we're trying to mitigate that issue. As you know, we have to close off the water fountain as a safety issue based on recommendations from the health department. So that is there that we're working on. We also know that we have students who have to be quarantined because of COVID issues. Now that's outside of our control. What we can control is that we have mitigation efforts in place to slow down the spread of those things in our school. For the most part, they're not getting COVID at school. They're coming in with COVID. And as soon as parents explain that they're positive cases or wherever that comes from, we do contact tracing, and then we try to find the students who were closest to them for duration of time, having been exposed, then we quarantine those students. We also have, where we have put in place tutoring for our students. We have since received some teachers who are retired teachers who will also be able to do so, teaching the students online during the daytime, along with the after school program, to make sure that our students are not missing out from their education, primarily in the areas of literacy and math. As it relates to high school, students have access to the platform Khan Academy, where they can get, just about all their subjects there, so they're not falling behind. I must on this commend Dr. Paul White for setting up this massive system of getting everyone uploaded into what we call a VOC system to figure out who is compliant, who is not compliant, and sending out massive emails, individual emails to people. Dr. Paul White, raise your hand where you are. We call him now Assistant Superintendent for Health. He has been doing a lot of that work. And before I say more, I forgive me for not introducing my team. Danny Diaz, who is our parent coordinator and has been sending out information to you. Pedro Mendialanda, who is our multilingual director. Ms. Gemma Joseph Lumpkin, who is our YFCE Youth Family Community Engagement Chief. Miss Lisa Mack, who is our HR director, Human Resource Director. We have Dr. Michelle Sherburne, who is our Director of Research and Assessment. Dr. Michael Finley, raise your hand where you are. He's a new addition to our staff. He's my Chief of Staff. And then up in the other end is Ms. Keisha Hannons, Assistant Superintendent for Instructional Leadership. Not seeing the face, the video is hidden, Ms. Evie Velasquez, because I think Evie is driving at this moment, but trying to participate. She's our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction. Mr. Justin Harmon is our Director of Communications. and he's driving too, so he just shows his face. So those are my folks who are on here right now. So let me continue. Your unwavering support to New Haven Public School, I say as parents, must be commended. You have trusted us. We are in COVID, a COVID pandemic, but in spite of that, you've trusted us with your precious jewels, your children, and we are loving and caring for them as much as we can in the best way we know how, and to make sure that they get the education that they deserve. Although we do acknowledge there will be times when there'll be some disruption because of COVID. One thing I'm asking my parents for is please make sure that the students are attending school, because the teachers cannot teach an empty seat. Please ensure that they're getting up and they're going to school. And we know there are challenges sometimes, but please encourage your young people to get up and go to school, to make sure that they're wearing their masks. And as we go through the school, we remind them by pointing to the nose, make sure you get it over your nostrils. And sometimes we find that the masks sometimes are too big for their faces, may need a little tie, a little knot tying, a little more tightening to go over the ear. So, and every school has extra masks for students. So teachers will reach out and give extra masks to students. So that is in place. So attendance is very, very important for us as a school system. We're living in scary times, very scary times. No one wants to be sick. No one wants to die. At the same time, we cannot allow this pandemic to destroy our lives and our lifestyles. We cannot just come to a standstill, or the whole entire economy will come to a standstill. So we have to learn to live with it, like we've learned to live with many other diseases that have come forth, that we as children, I still have mark on my arm when we were vaccinated back in the late 60s. I'm aging myself. And so we still have that. Our students also have the childhood vaccination that they need to adhere to. You may be getting information from schools or from the nurses that they cannot enter school unless you show that you have an appointment for the child to get their inoculation. I'm not talking about COVID now. The regular inoculation that they need to stay in school. This is not even a choice. It's also a mandate that they get their early vaccination. Because of COVID, it was compounded a little bit because they were not able to go to their doctors and get the necessary vaccinations. I would say shots, we call it, not to mix it up with vaccination, the necessary immunization or shots that they needed to get. So please, as you get those information from the school nurse, please comply with those so our students are not spending a lot of time away from school for lack of compliance. We have started out the school system this year with a new math program for K-5. It's called iReady. They have had a diagnostic, which is called a pretest, and we're hoping that after some form of implementation, it will be shared with you where they are in terms of their mid-year and post-test to see whether or not there is some impact of this new math program on our children with regard to mathematics. If you can recall, the one we used to use is called Math in Focus, and that's actually out of print. So we had to go to, and the board has adopted this new K-5 math program that is called iReady. I am going to compile for you parents. I know many times you're asking what my child should know and be able to do. And we have it from pre-K all the way up through 12th grade. So we're compiling a booklet. Compiling a booklet. It's on our website, but we're working on compiling a booklet that can be something tangibly in your hands to see what the students are expected to know and be able to do in those content areas in the grade level. So we're working on that. Along with that, we have launched we're implementing truly what is called the framework. Don't want to confuse you with what that is, but it's the way all of the departments, non-negotiables, whatever you're doing should be funneled through this, what we call instructional framework. The different aspects of learning that needs to happen for our students to learn and learn well. So that's as simple as I can put that. for you in terms of those instructional frameworks. Many of you have watched the board meeting, have seen that we have made those presentations to the board meeting. Now, I know you want to know some update. You have asked me and I have listened to you, and we have pushed in to ensure that there's before and after school programs. Some of them are up and running, not altogether 100% yet. Again, that depends on staffing. We cannot run a program without having the staff to run the program. So some that have found staff, they're up and running, and some are not yet up and running, but we're trying to keep our promise. As soon as we find staff members, you'll get information from your schools about which programs are up and running. So we do listen to you. We listen to your concerns. If we don't have these meetings, or so we don't know clearly what are some of your needs. We'll try to do as much as we can to support our families, because when we support you, we're supporting the students at the same time. I recently worked with the board on my goals, and we're going to share it out on the website, what the goals of the superintendents are. I have worked on the goals, shared with the board. So it's a collaborative piece with the board, what my goals are in about 7 different superintendent standard areas, incorporating aspects of our strategic school plan with the 5 priorities. And we're trying to send out in every document these 5 priority areas that our parents are understanding. We're focused on academics. We're focused on hiring people as much as we can. We're focused on youth, family, community engagement. We're focused on social emotional learning systems. And we're focused on making sure that we have organizational efficiency, where we're looking at, my chief of staff is looking to see across the departments, what can we do better to enhance service to our families and service to the different departments and schools, et cetera. And that will take some time. Another thing I need to share with you, we're going through what is called a facility study, looking at our facilities. Now, we invested billions of dollars in making sure that we have very beautiful school buildings for our students and staff. Some of them are aging because some have been renovated or refurbished 20 years or more than 20 years ago. So some things still need to be kept up, such as their HVAC system, their boiler systems, etc. And so we have a facility study that's going on right now to give us an idea of where we need to prioritize getting some of those things fixed. That is going on, and we'll be able to invest some of our dollars to get those fixed because they're considered COVID related. Staff, is there something I've left out? Anyone can chime in if I've left out any important thing with our families to share. Oh, in terms of our grants, we have written what we call the ARP ESSER grant of over $80 million. And I must say this to you, we are proud that we have pushed majority of that money into teaching and learning, into classroom, into things for the schools, because we know that's where the funding should be spent. So we did not want to make this funding top heavy. The only part that we have taken out of that to be like for salaries per se I'm mixing up. In ESSER 2, let me say ESSER 2, is where we have hired teachers to reduce class sizes in grades 1, 2, and 3. Many times the class sizes are 27. We consider the impact of COVID on our students and the importance of having more individualized learning plans for our students, for smaller class sizes so they can get more attention. And so that is happening at that level. Much of the funding is going into the academic area to make sure that we focus on those areas and in professional development. And also updating our IT department, making sure we get more mesh networks in our schools so that they can beam into the community for free internet access for families. So we're doing all that on our side to make sure that the students are well supported and the families are well supported. We also have where YFCE has been reaching out for parents, reaching out to you when they come knocking at your door. They're not coming to hound you or anything, it's just to encourage you and to see what we can do to support you. We have among us many homeless families in New Haven Public School that we are also supporting. So we are making sure that the food department is doing a good job at feeding our children. So we have a lot that we're doing much more above academic learning in the school system. The whole thing is looking at the whole child and making sure we're servicing the needs as best as possible. Now, are we perfect? No. Can we improve on what we're doing? Certainly, yes. All of us can improve. I can improve. Everyone on this program tonight, webinar tonight, can improve. There are things always for us to improve. The only person who cannot improve is that person who is no more with us. You know what I mean by no more with us, just totally no more with us. But for those of us who are alive and well, we always have areas of improvement. I need to hear your voices about what New Haven Public School can do better as we move forward. We're in this together. There should not be a rift between parents and administration and teachers. When students detect that rift, we can support them the best way we can. Students need to see a synergy among parents, teachers, administrators, showing that we're working together for their best good. And I'm telling you, if it is not going well, reach out to me, reach out to Gemma, reach out to people on this panel and explain to them what are some of the things that you think we could do a little better. And if you want to throw in and say, I can help you do this, I can help the district to do this, do that, we welcome those things. You know, even though we know many have to be done outside of the school, but we welcome your suggestions. Right now, we're keeping families out for safety reasons, but we welcome your suggestions of what you can do to help New Haven Public School be the best public school system. And I mean the best. I call it premier school district, the best school district we want New Haven to be, and we can do it. We have the staff, we have the resources, we have the families, we have the students. We can do this together.
Doc,
Yes.
I know you also wanted to address TikTok and inappropriate comments.
I sent out some information to you, I think it was last week, about this TikTok challenge that these students, you know, our students are very media savvy and tech savvy, and they can access a whole bunch of things with their devices. And so one of the things that was going around, not just in New Haven, but in more so in a lot of other places, students are asked to carry out certain challenge, to damage school property, to rip out bathroom dispensers or whatever they can rip off and throw it down, which is strictly vandalism. And also one of the things that caught my attention, one of the challenges to slap a teacher. Parents, are you hearing me? One of the challenges to slap a teacher. Now, you know, if a child slap a teacher, we can't do anything else but expel the child from school. No amount of restorative practice can save, and Gemma is laughing, can save that child, because that's an assault on a teacher. Just like if a teacher assaulted a child, they would not have their jobs, right? It's the same thing. So please warn your young people about not taking up those challenges. It's going around like wildfire. It's all over the place, where students are challenged, and you know how peer pressure is, they're challenged to do certain things that in the childhood simplicity, they follow along and they do these things and then have to suffer the consequences. And not only are they suffering the consequences, parents do, as parents, we suffer the consequences with them. Because then now we have to figure out what we do with them at home, how we're going to make sure they're safe when we're going to work. So all that has its ripple effects. So I'm asking you for your support to talk to your youngsters, high school, elementary school, about not getting involved in those things. It's very, very important. Have I left out? Is there anything else we wanted to share?
Inappropriate comments.
Oh, we also have inappropriate comments going on around the place. So students are using the N-word, like it's rattling off their tongue so easily, like they use some other words among us, which I can't repeat, but they are using that. And then we have staff members who, in their effort to correct, find themselves repeating it by saying, you know, you don't use that word in our classroom. And so it creates problems also on that side. So I'm asking you, please talk to them about the nature of the N-word, the connotation associated with that, or any other word. It could be words that are gender-based, right? Race-based, gender-based, whatever, that they just cannot go around just saying whatever comes from their mouth. To them, as young people, they don't see anything wrong with it, but as adults, we have to guide them to let them know that we're living in a different world, and people take things seriously, so we ought to be careful about what comes out of our mouths, and don't have to regret later on.
Next, I think Dr. White wanted to talk about, to respond to a few questions I saw on the Q&A in reference to COVID and testing in schools.
Okay.
Yes, there were a couple questions about the project COVID Detect, and we are getting that program started. We had a change in who our testing partner was. Letters will be coming out to families within the next 24 hours. We've been working with our testing partner to set up the portal for how we're going to receive information, and we will be continuing with the program similar to how it was in the spring, where once families give permission, the testers will come once a week for the same day, and they will test your child, and you would get the results within 24 hours. Like I said, we've changed providers, so we will be getting that up and running. Information is ready to go out. It's just waiting for our portal to be finished connecting, which is happening this evening.
And we also have still available testing vaccination sites for COVID for ages 12 years and up through high school. Now we understand that there are families who are somewhat reluctant, and then that's your right to be reluctant, whatever research you've looked at, whatever. But if you're not getting them vaccinated, right now there's not a mandate. Some states have mandated that. Connecticut has not yet, but please get them to be tested, because it's not only protects them, protect your family, but protect those around them. Get them to be tested. It's still the nasal swab, not the one that first time they came out with it, it goes way up in your nostril. This one is just towards like the entrance, so it doesn't like go all the way up in your nostrils. Please sign up for your youngsters to get the testing at the school sites when they're up and running.
And yes, it is a PCR test that's being done. It's a lower nasal PCR test. I just saw that question in the chat as well.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. White, can you speak a little bit about the protocol around quarantining students, how that works?
Absolutely. We quarantine in coordination with our health department. We use the CDC guideline of spending more than 15 minutes unmasked within exposure of another student or person who is tested positive. We look at the time, look at positioning in the class. Did they spend 15 minutes unmasked? Were they closer than 3 feet? Were they in the 6 feet range? Depending on the conditions, we ask lots of questions of the students and the adults around to get a sense of who needs to quarantine. And we try to limit where we can how many people have to quarantine, but at the same time, we're not going to, we tend to be conservative about it, in which sometimes someone may be at the edge of the range. We're sending them to be quarantined as well, because we are trying to keep the entire school population safe. And the quarantine is for 10 calendar days, not school days or weekdays. It's 10 calendar days. And during that time, we encourage students, parents to get any student who's been a close contact tested, usually within 3 to 5 days of the original contact, so that you can also be assured that your child is safe and did not contract.
Ms. Mack, can you speak a little bit about the process to get substitutes? Someone talked about, their child not having the teacher's absent and having a substitute. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So good evening, everyone. So right now we're in the process of recruiting substitute teachers. We currently do have a substitute teaching portal that we use, and we look for substitute candidates who have a bachelor's degree or higher to be able to substitute our students, to be substitute teachers for our students in the districts. We also work with non-degree substitute teachers who we'll assign to work as teachers assistants. If you know of anyone, this is a great time to share. Ask your friend, ask your neighbors, anyone interested in substitute teaching to contact the Office of Human Resources, or just I'll put it in the chat, to apply online at www.nhps.net. We have many opportunities available. We would love to have you join our team, so you can, even if as parents, if you're interested in becoming a substitute teacher, there's a position here for you. There is a process that we have to adhere to, though. Keep it in mind, we want to keep everyone safe, and we have to follow the guidelines or a mandate with regards to ensuring that if you are fully vaccinated, show proof of vaccination. And we have an application packet, which includes all applicants must be fingerprinted. And so we have a new fingerprinting process, which takes a much shorter time to become vetted and become eligible to become a substitute teacher. So if you're interested, we can send out a flyer to you all. Again, ask your family members, ask your neighbors. We are definitely in dire need to build our pool of candidates who are interested in substitute teaching.
And what's the rate, Ms. Mack?
So, and we have recently increased our rate, so we are competitive. So I'm happy to share that we pay $100 per day as a substitute teacher, and that is 6.25 hours per day. It's not even an 8-hour day. So we're excited about that new rate as well. So again, if you know someone interested in becoming a substitute teacher, please let your friends and families know to go to www.nhps.net and to submit your online application. And we'll be back in contact with you, letting you know what next steps look like. Thank you.
We're also looking for part-time workers in different fields. And with the part-time workers, I know some people are going to say this is chicken feed, but it's $1 above the state's part-time rate. We are paying $14 per hour, just passed by our board to pay $14 per hour for part-time workers. So if you're looking for something part-time, you may, and just something extra in your pocket or something, we are looking for those workers. You can reach out to Ms. Gemma Joseph Lumpkin or to Mr. Danny Diaz or Mr. Pedro Mendia Landa, Lisa Mack, any of those individuals, to say you're interested in doing part-time work in New Haven Public Schools. There's an anonymous attendee who asks about something around quarantine and exposure.
Yeah. I'm going to go back and answer us. Generally, if a student is fully vaccinated, they are not considered a close contact. So that's one thing. So usually we do ask that question as well if they've been vaccinated, and we have not been quarantined vaccinated students.
What if a child is quarantined? The parent, this is the parent information. The child is quarantined, and the parent is asked to take the student for testing. They come back negative. Should that child now go back to school because a negative test has been given after 3 days or so?
At this point, we are not doing testing out of quarantine. That's something we are still working with the health department around that issue, about whether we can allow students to test out, because part of the issue is from exposure, beginning of symptoms could be 3 to 5 days, sometimes long. That's why it's been a 10-day quarantine.
Yeah.
The other questions about holidays coming up and quarantine, that is something else we're working with our health department, because there is a split right now. While there's no state travel ban, the CDC does recommend quarantines for people interstate travel for a certain amount of time. But we are going to work with the health department and have a clear guideline that families can know well in advance what will be expected during the holiday season for travel, and would there be the need to quarantine.
Connected to that, there's a question around planning for remote later on in the year.
So planning for remote is not our choice. It would be coming from the governor's office to New Haven, from we call it CDC, Connecticut State Department of Education. We just can't arbitrarily say we're going to do remote. That has to come from the governor's office through to us about that. One of the challenges we had last year with doing remote or hybrid learning, part at home, part at school, that was very challenging for teachers to do justice to both aspects of this learning model. It was necessary at that time. Now the governor wants everyone in school 5 days per week. That's why we open up 5 days per week. Now, students who are quarantined, we're working on giving them the best that we can do for them while they're in quarantine. And so we continue to work on that front. We have gotten some teachers who are retired teachers who will be teaching these students for certain hours of the day in the daytime, along with tutors from Yale and others who will be available to parents to work after school to further support the learning of students. Now, the parent concern I see here is that the child is still getting Fs for assignments and is being marked absent from school. Now, a child who is quarantined should never be marked absent from school. There's a special code that the schools and teachers were given to use for a child who is quarantined.
Dr. White, if you could, oh, you asked the question. Am I sorry, Doc?
Yeah, go ahead.
On the please contact the principal. Notify the principal if your child is in quarantine and you notice that they're receiving Fs on their grades. Please contact the principal and they will work with you, your child, and the teacher to ensure that they're able to complete their classwork. But please contact and notify the principal of the school. I was going to ask Dr. White, there's some questions around staff, and if you could briefly talk about the vaccination policy mandate from the governor for staff.
Absolutely. As of last week, mandate for all school workers across the state to be vaccinated, or if they are not vaccinated, they have to have a exemption and have to have weekly testing. So the far majority of our district has chosen vaccination. Those that have not are in a weekly testing protocol. Anyone joining our workforce now must be vaccinated. They may still apply for an exemption, but they may not just select to not be to just choose to decline the vaccination. So going to focus on that, we really want to make sure we get our kids vaccinated when the opportunities come up, and that our staff be vaccinated.
A parent asked a question about Amistad. Amistad is not a part of New Haven Public Schools. They're their own local education agency. So we do not have anything to do with anything that happens at Amistad or Achievement First.
There are a few questions. Go ahead, Doc. Yep, that's where I was going.
I'll address the locker issue. And what we are looking at right now, the lockers were not being used primarily because it was an area where we had kids hanging out, and it's a point of congregation, especially in our high schools. Also, there's been a low, in some of our schools, there was low usage of lockers. Like in one of our largest high schools, for example, when we went into closure, we only had 120 lockers that needed to be emptied of contents for students to get back. So we are looking at, with our younger grades, about mitigation strategies around using lockers. in a K-8 building, perhaps kids get sent out a few at a time to use it and things of that sort. But again, it is a situation that's evolving, and we'll be having continuous conversations with our health department about allowing, opening up for the use of that. As we continue to see numbers trending down, again, we're going to bring more things back to being normal.
And may I be transparent and candid with my parents? Yes, we have been experiencing some fights in some buildings. We know that many of our students have missed almost 2 full years of school, away from structures, away from routine. So getting back and getting adjusted and acclimated to having to sit and listen to teachers and move from class to class becomes a challenge for many of our young people. And a lot of social media issues are spilling into the school. So some of these things are planned on social media and carried out in the school, where I don't know how much you control or have control over your youngsters and the use of social media, but it is becoming a problem nationwide, not just New Haven public schools, where kids set up their business and come to school and carry it out. And the way they do it is not even so much in the classroom. They choose lunch period, lunchtime, or they choose transition, where there are a lot of audience to see. And then what they're doing is videotaping what is happening and send it out to social media. I don't know if that's a part of a challenge or what it is, but yes, we're experiencing some of those things. And I know of one high school, they've been sending the students home if caught doing these things, because we have to have a safe place for our young people. And we just can't have these things happening. So fights, we don't know when they're going to happen, but the important thing, when they happen, what do we do about it? Okay, so that is happening.
Okay. Also, want to go back, want to remind everyone, this is a state mandate that came down from the governor about the vaccination. And there was a question about what does staff which are not in compliance, how is this being addressed? There has been a policy passed by the Board of Education about what happens to staff that doesn't abide by the mandate. As of this point, we've had great compliance with the mandate, and that the status is people are most are vaccinated. Those who are not have been doing their testing, and we're continuing to that. We're thankful that of course, our fantastic staff is partnering with complying with the governor's order, and we're not having disruptions in our schools. We've gone through this week with regular operations in our buildings. Our buses have been running. So kudos to all of our staff for maintaining and doing what we need to do to keep moving forward.
Doc, you'll love this question, Doc. Snow days, snow days. Will snow days be remote days, or will they actually have snow days this year?
So, I know you were passionate. Many of you were passionate about snow days last year, but I think I caught up and give them a couple of snow days. So we're watching that. We do not want to take away snow days from our kids. They need it. They need to go romp in the snow. But last year I felt that so much was being lost, and we needed to, capitalize on that day to get some more learning in for our students. But I listened carefully. Because you emailed me, you did your job, you emailed me. I said, really? But we listened, and this time around we watch carefully what is happening, and anything around snow day, I'll send out information to you. But one thing I'm promising, I'm not going to rob them of all snow days. It depends too. We could have a blizzard that lasts for a whole week, like we've had in the past. So let's keep our fingers crossed that we'll just have 1 or 2 days here and there. And remember also that if we have too many snow days, teachers, staff, students have to make up at the end of the year, because there's a state requirement for number of days and number of hours of instruction in school.
All right. Oh, also, while we have families on right now, just a reminder to our parents and families that if you have a child in kindergarten, seventh grade, or 10th grade, please make sure you have submitted your child's most recent and updated physical. It must be within the last year, or our students in those particular grade levels, kindergarten, 7th, and 10th, will not be allowed to come on campus. So please make sure that you have your children either schedule an appointment, bring the appointment card to school to give to the school nurse, or submit the physicals. Very important, because students will not be allowed in those particular grade levels without an updated physical.
Also true for pre-kindergarten as well, Ms.
Yes.
Red
Thank you.
Hannahs.
Thank
And
you.
the flu shots.
Yes. So thank you.
Okay.
Wow.
Someone talks about filtering student access to social media sites. Just today, I was having conversation with the IT director because questions were raised through email about students' access to social media. And as it relates to this TikTok and what have you, from the understanding I received that they're able to filter some, but not all. If it's connected to our Wi-Fi, to our network system, we have some control over filtering some. But if it's the student's own devices, we can actually stop that. But on our devices, they put up blocks for different things. And again, our students are savvy, tech savvy. I'm telling you, smart children, they're smarter than myself here when it comes to technology. They can find ways of bypassing a lot of things that you put in place. Trust me. But we're
also
trying
one thing also comes up why we allow some sites such as YouTube, because there is educational material, while always in this battle between the proper and use of technology and the struggles with issues that we have. And one of the things we all have to work on is our digital citizenship. So that's conversations with our students about the proper use of technology, what's appropriate, especially both on our school devices, but also their personal devices for their own safety.
A parent asks about grants online for perusal. All of the grants that we receive, everything is transparent, because one thing we have to do, we have to bring things through finance and operations meeting and then to the entire board. So any of the board meeting you look under, it is on our site under Board of Ed meetings materials. Everything is posted in there. Just recently, Ms. Hannans shared an abstract with finance operations on how we're using the ARP ESSER of $80 million. And then the abstract was shared with F&O, and then it's up on the line. Everything is visible and open. Nothing is hidden, because we want to be as transparent as ever the way we are spending the monies that come into New Haven Public Schools.
There was a clarifying question in reference to when there's a delay in another district due to snow, let's say Hamden or West Haven, or if Hamden or West Haven is closed and New Haven is on time and we're in school. Yes, so parents, if the case happens where you live in Hamden and Hamden is closed but New Haven is open, we do not send our buses into the town of Hamden, because we trust that our partners in Hamden have deemed the roads unpassable and not safe. So we will not send our buses into Hamden if they're closed and we're open. So you will have to bring your child to school. And that's just for safety purposes, has been our practice, because we believe the roads are not safe in those particular towns if they have delayed school or they have closed school for the day and we're operating.
And Ms. Red Hannahs, there is a question close to my heart around being able to see students' classrooms. Many parents, is particularly a kindergarten parent, says they were hoping to have video tours of the school. She said that she has no clue what her son's kindergarten classroom looks like. So I know that some teachers use various apps to share with parents. So I don't know, Ms. Red Hannons, if you have some thoughts, or Dr. Tracy, some thoughts around.
I'm telling you, the classrooms are beautiful. It seems like they've been preparing forever for our young people. But what I know some teachers have done, they would send a pic of their classroom to their families. So I'm sure if you request from your classroom teacher, could you send me a picture of the classroom setup? They'll be willing to share that with you. You know, you should understand why we can't have people going into the classroom, because it's not only your child in there, there are other people's children. So we have to make sure that parents are not going into the classrooms. I know that is hard, because in the past we allow you to come in, tour, and see what the school is like. But if you take it from us, the schools are beautiful. The teachers have set up well for their students.
Dr. White, there is a question from a Spanish-speaking parent as to what are the ages of the students that will be able to participate in the COVID testing?
It will be available for kindergarten through 12th grade. Our district is one of 8 districts, with the exception that covers all of our grades K through 12. Unfortunately, pre-kindergarten is not eligible for this because of the funding stream. It only covers kindergarten through 12th grade.
What positions is the district immediately hiring for? Immediately looking for tutors, immediately looking for teachers, K6, right? Looking for language arts teachers, all those, because we have had some problems with 7th and 8th grade in some places where the language arts teachers have left. And so we're looking to replace those, and it's not easy to come by to find teachers. And so we're trying our best to get those placed. We have set up information on our own AppleTrack system and on Connecticut REAP, where we advertise in other advertising places to reach out for people we're looking for. So, you know,
There's a high need, if I can just add to Dr. Tracy. We are really looking for special ed teachers.
yes.
So
yes.
that's one of the areas that we really have a shortage area, and so if you know anyone who's interested in being a special education teacher, we're open and willing to meet and hopefully have an opportunity to work with New Haven, the greatest district in Connecticut, in the world. So yeah, those are one of the areas that we have a hard to fill. There's a high need to fill those positions, especially given the last year that we just experienced.
Yeah, we're also looking for tutors for multilingual learners. I know Mr. Pedro Mendia has received grants to make sure that we're finding tutors to support our schools that have this need.
Does anyone else see any questions that we have not touched on in the Q&A?
Yeah. So there's a question around the consequences of smoking at school. Has this been conveyed to students? We have a code of conduct that is online that our principals are working to engage our students and staff on what that means. Based on the actual offense and harm, we are making sure that students know that there is a process for dealing with this type of behavior.
There's a question if we're going to have a vaccine mandate for children. Right now, that is something that would not be decided at the school district level. That would more so be something that would be from the state level, the same way the vaccination mandate for staff came in. But we will be making vaccine clinics available. As the ages drop, we will have those available for our students, hopefully often in many of our schools, and rotating again with our partnership with Griffin Hospital as well as the health department. But at this point, there is no mandate on students.
A parent asked about class sizes. I know that for grades 1, 2, 3, we have lowered class sizes. In other buildings, we're asking that if we can find part-time workers to help support class size, because some schools, to be honest with you, have their class to capacity. They're packed. Their parents really send out their children to school. And to some of those, we've been talking to principals that if they need to have part-time help. One of the challenges families is getting personnel. We have to make sure we get the right people in place also. We have to do the background check. Now we have to make sure that they're COVID compliant and all these different things. So it's not easy to find the right people to work with our students. We can't put any and everybody to work with our students. And so we have that challenge. But if you're a parent out there and you have a degree, whatever area you have your degree in, and you're not having children to take care at home, and you're retired or something, and you want to come in and support, by all means, let your principals know, let Miss Gemma Lumpkin know, let Miss Hannons, Dr. White know, so we can try to see how you can assist your school system with that level of support.
Dr. White, there's a question around, given the compliance, the mandate, the vaccination mandate, how is it impacting classrooms across the district?
Okay, so far it has had very little impact there. There were a few instructional staff out. There have been some staff in other departments that have been out due to compliance. Some areas in food service, some areas in custodial staff. There's been little impact in the instructional aspect at this point.
There's a question about the flu shot, and is it mandatory? It's mandatory on the pre-K level. So for pre-K students, it's mandatory. Does anyone else see any questions we have not touched on?
This is other districts do not quarantine fully vaccinated children. Do students have to quarantine regardless of vaccine status? Did we answer that?
We did address that, but just to reiterate, if a student is fully vaccinated, they are not considered a close contact as long as they are not exhibiting symptoms. So if they had come in contact with a positive person and then they themselves are experiencing COVID-like symptoms, then they would be asked to quarantine. But in general, the average student who has been fully vaccinated is not considered a close contact of someone positive.
And there's also, in line with that, a question around students traveling out of state and being quarantined during the holiday period.
Yep, and we're going to be getting a final answer to distribute to families prior to getting to that point, because there's a discrepancy between the state travel mandate versus what a CDC recommendation. So we want to make sure we come in line so that it's very clear for families to understand on the front end for traveling.
Someone asked about acceptance of religious exemption for substitutes. Yes, we accept religious exemption for teachers, substitutes, but one thing that is non-negotiable, they have to be tested weekly.
There are several questions in reference to attendance and maybe being marked absent, or how is attendance being taken for students in quarantine. Please reach out to the school principal if you feel like your child has been marked absent in error and your child was indeed in school. They will be able to work with you to change the attendance on their record. In the same breath, if your child is late due to the bus and you see a high number of tardies on your child's report card, please reach out to the principal. They are keeping track of buses that are coming late to school, and they will make those adjustments for you. Doc, I see one other question. Lisa, can you just clarify around the substitutes?
Yes.
What's the degree that's needed, the pay rate? Seems like several of our families are interested, which is a great thing.
Oh, that would be welcome.
Yes, so I did see some of those questions. So the substitute daily rate of pay is $100 per day. And that is the same rate for the non-degree subs and degree sub. So what's the requirement for a non-degree sub? you have to have at least a high school diploma. And of course, you have to meet the district's pre-employment requirement, and that includes an online application. You'll come in, we'll instruct you on next steps with regards to the proof of your vaccination status, your fingerprint process, that's a requirement, and the completion of your substitute hire packet. Once you have completed all those requirements, we will notify you. And if you have a degree, you'll have access to our absence management system, which allows you to see what positions that we have available, substitute assignments that are available that you can actually sign up in advance. If you have a high school diploma with experience working with small children, then we will still process you this in the same manner. However, we will assign you an assignment once you complete and meet all our requirements. So if you're a high school diploma, you're a stay-at-home parent, and you want to substitute this day or that day, once you complete our process, we'll have you on a list, and we'll sign you out to when there is a need at different our schools in all our districts. And I can tell you there's pretty much a need to have your support at all our schools. So we can utilize you. So if you're interested in working where your child is, you can get a feel for what your child is doing. We certainly, if you meet our requirements, we certainly can assign you there. You can give us your preference where you think you want to work at. And if we have something available, we'll be working with you to make sure that you provide that support and get paid for it while you're checking on your child.
One parent, and Keish may be able to answer this. Are parents able to meet before or after school with their students' teacher? We cannot force teachers to stay before or after school. They have a contracted time that they must be in the school that they work for, 6.5 hours per day. We cannot impose on teachers' time. This is a contractual issue. However, and I'm sure that if teachers reach out, if parents reach out to teachers to have a conversation about their child and their child progress, you certainly can call the school and set up an appointment to talk. They can do it via video, Zoom, and have that conversation with you, or via phone to have that conversation with you.
And the last question, there was something about, are there tutoring resources for families not in quarantine? Individual schools are working on plans for that. And I know, unfortunately, Danny's on the translation line. I don't know if Gemma wants to say something about some of the tutoring opportunities.
We are going to be in the near future, Danny, I see Danny's back. We will be in the near future rolling out our tutoring plan with Yale as well as with Southern Connecticut State University. Danny is translating.
So that'll be, no, he's on the translation line, so he can't speak on us.
Yeah, so that is, so stay tuned. We are working on that. Meetings have been held, and we are working on making sure that happens in the coming weeks.
And can we put this one to parents? Every school is required to give students mask breaks. That's a given in the guidelines that we give. The students need their mask breaks. It has to be scheduled, of course, and structured to make sure students get their mask breaks. It's imperative, because we do not expect them to be sitting 6.5 hours in mask. Okay, so I just needed to say that. If that's not happening, you need to reach out to the principal of the school.
Okay, Doc, are you ready with closing words?
Yes.
Thank you. Yep, go right ahead.
Okay, parents, we may not have answered all of your questions, but we attempted. We wanted to keep this short too, because we know you're writing supper time for many of you. And this is a crucial time, but we want to thank you for spending the time with us, asking your questions. I wish I could see your faces. The reason why we're not seeing your faces is because we have experienced Zoom bombing. And so we want to be respectful to you as our audience and ensure that that doesn't happen again. Again, please reach out, send your questions. YFCE is there. Send a lot of your questions to their department and they will answer as much as possible. Questions relating to the schools, send email to the principals. And, you know, we have the assistant superintendents for those schools that also have an email on our site, and also numbers that you can reach out to. Please, again, thank you for entrusting your children to us, and we will continue to do the best we can to support. Again, please be patient with us as we're working through this transportation issue. It's outside of our control. We're working on it to make sure that those issues are properly resolved, but for the next couple of weeks, we may still have those problems until they get new bus drivers or more bus drivers vetted. I think we're told that we need in New Haven, about 40 something more bus drivers to take care of our needs. So we're working on that with the bus company. So please be patient with us. We do understand the frustration. Thank you so much for listening, and have a